Welcome back to the Celtics Blog Podcast. It's Bobby Manning here with a very special guest today. Nick Gelso is in the house. Hello, Nick.
I'm wondering what's so special, man. Like, what makes this very special?
You are the owner of CLNS Media. Did you want me to say that?
All you guys are. I just put out fires all day long. That's what I do.
There's a lot to talk about on the CLNS front for another show, but what's happening in Celtics land? Luckily, this time of year, there's not too much going on transactionally, if that's a word. But
you know what?
But all the players talking, having these platforms to get their voice out there, makes it much easier to discuss things. And Jaylen Brown had quite a bit to say yesterday, so we're going to get into that. What Cedric Maxwell said this week, as well as lots of videos of Gordon Hayward. Social media has just changed the podcast game, hasn't it?
Oh, man, it's changed everything. It's changed blogging, podcasting, how reporters go to market and do their business every day. I mean, it's just social media. Actually, I will put it this way, Bobby. Social media and podcasting has changed the journalism or the journalist industry. I know that doesn't I'm wording that wrong. But the fact that Jaylen Brown can go on a podcast, speak his mind at 1 p.m. on Tuesday, and at 2 p.m. on Tuesday, it's released. It's just unfathomable, 10 years ago when we started this, So it's changed the whole world, and especially the sports world. Twitter is like, I look at people like they're an alien when they say they're not on Twitter. And they kind of look at me like I'm an alien when I say I'm on Twitter, if they're not sports fans or politics.
That's an interesting one, though, because we, the people who are on Twitter, feel like the whole world's on there. But it actually is like a tiny percentage of the world in general that is on there. So, like, our lives are lived through these social media platforms when that's really not how the world works. So that's another interesting discussion in its own right, how that phenomenon works.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started in this business, I think I joined Twitter in 2006, and I changed account somewhere around 2008 or 9.
Wow, so you were like a day one.
I was an early adopter to it, but I couldn't I honestly was on it that long and only really, really started to figure out how to enjoy it probably 2 or 3 years ago. Through you guys. I mean, like, I was on it, but the young guys like you taught me how to use it.
Yeah.
And
it's opened the door to new voices in journalism, like you said, and new audiences, too, with the whole weird Celtics Twitter thing.
I look at that, Bobby, and, we're running wild with that, and the guys on the round table are having so much fun, and dude, you're the one who really did it first. I mean, CSN or NBC Boston would do it once in a while, but you really brought everybody together, and, John Zanis said, we're doing that. So thank you. That was great. We got to get you on that show. I mean, you're the one who first put everybody together.
With the round table? Nice. Mm-hmm. I guess I'll take credit for that.
Yeah, man. Well, even if you didn't do it, take credit. Be like Donald Trump. That's all.
That's another thing you can't do on blogging or podcasting at all is go a whole show without mentioning that name, huh?
I know, right? And it's like a curse word. I'm from Pennsylvania, and obviously Pennsylvania carried the election. But now, up in Boston for the basketball season, his name is like a curse word. You just don't say his name.
It's a beautiful day in Boston. You've been working out. I was sitting out by the pool getting.
It's gorgeous today. I got to be honest with you. I got probably about 80 emails to respond. I'm going to rapid fire through that. I just got back from the gym. I'm going to head down, rapid fire through emails, then head down to the pool for a little bit. And hopefully call it a day. Because you know what, Bobby? Pretty soon, I'm going to be back to working 16-hour days again.
Yeah.
Because TD Garden's going to be cranking out Bruins and Celtics games. Gillette's at full. I mean, we got 3 guys at Gillette at Foxborough today for the first preseason game.
Do you like opening night versus the Sixers? How do you feel about that matchup?
Love it. I love that they're promoting the rivalry. I mean, I've seen something. I was speaking of Twitter. I've seen some people on Twitter be like, the NBA's ramming this down our throats. Well, that's nothing new, man. I mean, when I was growing up, it was Dr. J, Mo Cheeks, Andrew Toney, Larry Bird, Cedric Maxwell. I mean, that rivalry, think about it this way. The Beat LA chants came from the Celtics-Sixers rivalry. Did you know that?
Really? No, I never heard of that.
So basically, I'll tell you the story really quick. So I could talk forever about history. But I think it was 82. So 88, 70, or 80, 81, the Celtics came back from 3-1 down, beat them, went to the finals, won the championship. 81, 82, they were down 3-1. They pushed it to a Game 7, and the Sixers finally survived. And Dr. J is going to get to the finals and play the Lakers. And at Boston Garden, instead of booing the loss, the fans got up and started chanting "Beat LA" to the Sixers. That's how much Celtics fans hated the Lakers. They chanted "Beat LA" to root on the Sixers, knowing that they were going to beat the Celtics and go to the finals and play the Lakers, and that's where it all started.
People talk about they don't like the superstars being in the finals every year, and people have complained about Warriors, Cavaliers going 3-4 straight years or wherever it did. But we all know we like the tradition. We like the best players being in it, and it's a beautiful thing to have not only the 76ers rivalry back. I remember when the Tatum-Fultz thing went down, that felt like day one of the rivalry actually being back, and everything is just going to stem from that. I wrote about it right after, and it did come to fruition with the playoff series last year. And then the Lakers, LeBron going there. So
yeah, I love it.
That's going to take a while to develop, it feels like, but we talked to Trevor Lane last episode on here, and it feels like that's going in a good direction too. We're actually doing Sixers Celtics week at CelticsBlog.com next week. So we're collaborating with Liberty Ballers for content. We're going to have a podcast out with them. So that's something to look forward to for next week.
You got a taste of that Sixers-Celtics rivalry in 2012.
Oh, that was a beautiful series. One of the most underrated of the decade.
Rondo was incredible, and that was a small snippet. So if the NBA does it right in the Eastern Conference or the Eastern Conference playoffs and land the way it seems they're going to, and Toronto doesn't get in the way, it's going to be Sixers-Celtics for many years. It's going to be Simmons and Tatum. I don't even think about Fultz anymore.
We know Drew Hanlon's jammed in the middle of the rivalry, though. He tweeted today that it's going to be like a pure sweat practice game when those two meet up, with all the players on both sides getting trained by him. Toronto's in the fold too, though, but this feels like a burn and bust year for them. If they accomplish something, they might be able to keep it together, but if that thing doesn't work, then that team's going to be out of the fold quickly.
I don't know. I think Kawhi is so crazy that they could go to the finals, and I think he'd still leave. It's almost like the Kyrie thing. I mean, we could talk about that later, but
yeah, can't read these guys easily. You'd think that the winning would draw them back toward these teams, but it's not that easy anymore.
Well, it's not the way it used to be. I mean, that's for sure. I look at Kyrie left Cleveland because of LeBron, but he learned a lot from LeBron about how to lead a team on to nowhere, because, and I mean that off the court. I mean, like, he doesn't want to answer questions about this, but all season long he is going to hear them because he won't address them. Mm-hmm. It's like LeBron, So, and I love Kyrie. I mean, and I'm one of those guys who says he ain't going to leave. I mean, if he leaves after the Celtics, even if they get to the Eastern Conference Finals and lose, if he leaves and goes to the Knicks, I don't want him in Boston then, because the dude's not interested in winning.
Jaylen Brown talked about a lot of his personal ambitions, his diet, gambling. There was so much to dissect in that thing. It was awesome. I was sitting out by the pool listening to it before this, and it had you tuned in fully for the whole 48 minutes or whatever it was. The show is interesting. CJ McCollum does a great job with it. Him and Kevin Durant getting into it was so fun a couple weeks ago. And then Jordan Schultz, who I'm a fan of, good guy over at Sports Illustrated, I think he's at. He gets jammed in the middle of it for some reason. I guess just to have like a media personality in there. And it makes it a little bit awkward. That was the only thing I didn't like about the show, is just how he had to sit there and interject at every turn.
Oh, kind of directing traffic, but yeah. Jaylen, I mean, it's to hear him. I loved him saying we wanted LeBron to stay in the East. I mean, you can't get much more from a third-year player now. I mean, to have that kind of confidence and to be vocal about it, I love the confidence. I mean, and I love the fact that Jaylen, to me, seems like he's somewhat of the opposite of Kyrie, where he's more in the Aaron Baines camp, where it's like, hey, offer me more money, but I'll tell you what, if it ain't a ton, I'm staying with the Celtics. And that's the kind of players the Celtics, Danny Ainge, I think, is grooming with them. And hopefully Kyrie's the same way. But it was good to hear Jaylen talking a little trash. And I think after last year, we could all see that, Jaylen could bag his trash. He can play a good ball. He's a baller.
Speaking of Trump and politics, there was some discussion on the shut up and dribble thing that has grown into a massive movement, which is great because that was just such an embarrassing statement. Who said that? Was a Fox News commentator who said that to LeBron.
It was, wasn't it Laura Ingraham?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That has moved into a surge of activism from players like LeBron building the high school last week, and they talked about that on the show. And Jaylen says that wants to be his priority going forward. He wants to be active in the community. He's writing a book now. And I wonder how that changes how someone like you who's around the team covers him now individually. Because, when you're around the team after the game, it's basketball questions. It's what do you think of this play, that play. It's always the generic stuff. You know what you're going to get after the games. I think it can really spice up the conversation after games to have, more social discussions after games and stories like that driving the conversation in the locker room after the game.
I don't know how much you're going to see it on game day, but I'll tell you what, practice is great for that. The players kind of light up when you ask them non-basketball questions at practice, and that's appropriate because it's, it's not quite as intense as a game. I mean, Gordon early on last year, you asked him anything about gaming, he talked for 15 minutes about it. It was like the same thing with obviously Kyrie with Uncle Drew. So I saw back to Jaylen. I went to the Harvard event that he had, and he was impressive, man. I took away from that. He was certainly very nervous, but one of the things that he really hammered home is like, I tell my friends, it's good to be uncomfortable. It's good to sometimes put yourself out of your comfort zone. And he's right. And for a young guy like that to have that kind of perspective, and for an old guy like me to hold on to something that he said, dude, he's years more mature than he's way more mature than his years, and he's an impressive cat, man. He's a really good. He's as impressive off the court as he is on.
And another thing that's impressive about him too, especially for his age, is that he knows what he doesn't know. Someone my age, we like to think we know everything, and they were talking about gambling in particular, and he made it pretty clear he doesn't have like a fully nuanced view of how that would change the league and how that's going to overhaul the NBA system as we know it once that finally comes into fruition. But he brought his experience into it. CJ McCollum talked about the gambling on the planes, which the big three obviously did
a lot.
Pretty often during their days in
Well, you
Boston.
heard that story from Max on Celtics Beat. That was great. With Pierce and Garnett, and Pierce is bragging about winning $5,000 or $6,000 playing against Garnett, and it was just great stuff, fun stuff. Those guys played cards all the time.
Yeah, that's its own thing. But when we're talking about gambling in particular, the actual system of betting on games is coming to the league within the next few years, it feels like. And the NBA, from what I hear, wants like a 1% to 2% cut of it. So that's probably going to add to the salary cap in some way down the line. And it's just going to change everything. But there's also the other side, the concerns that we've heard in the past about the referees, the Donaghy, all of that stuff that has happened in the past. Baseball has just wanted nothing to do with it after some of the controversies of gambling that happened in the past there with a guy like Pete Rose. So what are your thoughts about something like that being around the sport? I know what Jeff thinks. Jeff is anti-gambling. Don't gamble, kids. That's like his catchphrase nowadays as the conversation keeps building. But, my friends love it. Like, I'm around people my age all the time. Like, it is the thing to talk about. What's the line? It gets people watching games that they otherwise wouldn't be interested in. I was in D.C. this week. We watched every single baseball game that was on all weekend because there was money on the line.
Well, that says a lot because baseball is painful to watch. Even with the Red Sox on the record, the wins they're having, it's just painful. Bobby, I'm kind of with Jaylen there. I'm not. When I was a gambler, I was more of a table game player in a casino. I think I placed one bet on a game in my entire life, and I think it was a coin toss in the Super Bowl about 10 years ago. I don't understand the lines. and it's not something that I'm really eager to learn. It just doesn't do much for me. I understand it could have some positive impacts on the league, and that's wonderful, but it could also tempt people like the officials, the referees, and it's just the referees we don't need any more reason to question the referees in the NBA, I think, right? I don't have much for you there.
Yeah, that's the other side of the argument too, though, that when it's actually organized and structured and overseen by some body, that stuff like that's less likely to happen, because Donaghy was doing the cards, or however they used to do it, where the bookies and all of that was how he did it. And now when you'd actually have, could you imagine in TD Garden them having little machines where you go in and place a bet? They got the 50-50. They got the 50-50 thing up on the screen. Now they got the gambling jackpot for tonight's game up on the big screen. That's gonna be weird, huh?
If it happens, yeah, that would be very strange. I don't know that I would. Again, I think there's enough distractions during the games the way it is now. It's like cell phones are out all game. People are surfing the web, surfing Twitter. I mean, I don't know. I just don't have much of an opinion on the gambling aspects. I don't even know how it would impact the fantasy sports companies.
Yeah, that's another thing that's, for people like us who just love the game for what it is, I don't think we care for it as much because the game's exciting as it is, just based on what's happening on the floor. But you would have a massive crowd of casual fans coming in, of course, for everything between fantasy, gambling, and whatever else you want to throw in there.
But you look at league attendance. I mean, I don't see an issue there, really. Yeah. I mean, the Celtics certainly don't have an issue with selling out the Garden. I'm not going to say anything on this topic because I don't know my facts well enough to comment on it. So I'll stay away from it.
What do you think of Brown's vegan diet? He was talking about how he's a vegan, but if he wants chicken wings, he's going to have them. He's you can't put him under a label in that sense. Do you think you'd be able to go vegan?
No. Are you kidding me? Why would you want to be so boring? I need. Yeah, food means too much to me, man.
Oh, that's right. You're a former chef. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I mean, vegans used to come into my restaurant and be like, get the F out of here. Like, are you kidding me? Like, you're making everything boring. What do you want, pasta primavera? Get out. No, I mean, I understand why athletes do it. Well, Kyrie is crazy with his diet, right? He's all plant-based raw, I think.
He is.
If it works for them, do it. I love that Jaylen, again, Uber, for somebody who takes himself so seriously, I like that he could not take himself kind of seriously at one point and say, hey, chicken wings are off limits,
You know what? I could never throw eggs out. That's the thing for me. Eggs are probably my second favorite food behind
Really?
Pizza.
Eggs?
Oh, I love eggs. There's so many ways to make them.
Yeah,
Every day I got to start there's not a day I don't eat eggs.
See, I struggle with breakfast, and it's, not to be cliche, but it is the most important meal of the day. And I wake up and I have a cup of coffee and I'm full. Like I don't crave breakfast.
Understand people like that. I live for breakfast. So if you took breakfast out of the equation, that would be like a big part of my life gone.
Well, Bobby, that's why that kind of explains it. You're built, you're a well-built young man, and I have like two twins in my stomach, man. I mean, that's probably that. Hey, you're eating right. I'm not. Don't take the advice from me.
You're back in the gym though, so you're already stepping in the right direction.
I'll tell you what. I told the guys that we report with that I'm going to show up at the Garden for opening night against the Sixers, 20 pounds lighter.
Awesome.
And I'm going to Christmas Day game at the Garden. I'm going to be 40 pounds lighter. So I have no choice now. I mean, it's balls to the walls because, everybody's going to bust my butt on the Garden report if I don't lose the weight. Don't forget, Bobby, I was 40 pounds lighter before last season. I gained 40 pounds last season.
Yeah.
What do you do? You're working 16-hour days. What am I going to do? Get home from the Garden at 1 a.m. and cook dinner?
Yeah, the lack of sleep hurts, too. Sleep's a big part of the weight, I hear.
The lack of sleep, and I'll tell you, for years – Jared Weiss would tell me, you don't understand. Like, we would get into an argument working together, or him working for me. You just don't understand how hard it is. By the end of the season, you're running on empty. I don't have any energy to do anything. I'd be like, this kid is complaining about covering a basketball game? Let me tell you. I'll tell you what, because I was always, come up 1 week out of the month. So this is never 41 consecutive games or whatever, and then road games and everything else and having multiple sports going on. I now say, Jared, I'll eat crow. If you listen to this podcast, it is not easy. It's a bad lifestyle.
Let's cap off this Brown conversation with his goals for next year. So we're going to be seeing him opening night, 14-5 last year, successful playoff run, playing through the hamstring. I mean, between what Kyrie and Hayward went through last year, Tatum's ridiculous rookie season, I don't think Brown got enough credit for how much he boosted his game from rookie to sophomore year. It was ridiculous how far he came. And a guy like that doesn't get most improved candidacy, of course.
Ridiculous. He slipped under the radar with a lot of people as far as his improvements go. But I'll tell you what, the Celtics do not get to the Eastern Conference Finals with no Kyrie, no Gordon Hayward, no Tice, Shane Larkin, and no Jaylen Brown. I mean, there were games in the playoffs where Jaylen Brown just willed them to victory. Especially, I mean, you look at the heart of this kid, this guy, this man. He comes in, second-year player, puts his body on the line and plays injured. You don't see that a lot in the NBA anymore. Yeah. A lot of people aren't willing to do that, especially at that age.
We were on the post-game show, and I was like, this series is lost. Like, when he got injured in that Game 7 against Milwaukee, a hamstring injury, you don't think a guy's going to come back from that. We saw what happened to Chris Paul in the West Finals. And he was right back out there after a game off, I think. And he willed them through that series. He really did, through the surprising 5-game victory. He was the vital character in that, right up there with Al Horford, I think.
That Sixers series last year, we traveled down to Philly. That night they blew off the cannons with the confetti. That was just so crazy. But then also, not often that I've seen the locker room be so excited after a non-series clinching victory. Because it was just improbable. They came back, they forced overtime, then they blew off the cannons with the tie game. It was just like the Twilight Zone. And again, no Jaylen Brown. The Celtics are first round out. Am I hooked on Jaylen the way I am Tatum? No. I mean, it's almost becoming cliche. Yeah, I'll give up Jaylen, but I ain't touching Jason.
Yeah.
Right. But it's true. I'm for the right character, I would give up. For the right player, I'd give up Jaylen, but it would be painful to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because he's a great two-way player. And where could he improve? He could improve, obviously continue to improve free throw shooting, decision-making in traffic. One of the things about Jaylen is I think sometimes his brain is 5 steps ahead of his body.
Yep.
So, and when that happens, you find players unforced turnovers.
And that's how he took himself out of games doing that, too, and I think he would even repeat that because he knows where the weaknesses lie. He was talking about the free throws, the ball handling in particular. I mean, I could write 5,000 words about the ball handling thing because if he could handle the ball, he'd be Jimmy Butler. And that's why I still hold out on a guy like him because he's just 2 years in. That's something you can add to your game. And once he does that, the sky's the limit for him.
I agree. And that's also a nice reason to have a marquee player or a superstar want to come to Boston and that team that they're trading from want Jaylen Brown and he goes and the Celtics bring in Anthony Davis. So it's not going to happen. But
another name
I love Jaylen Brown. You know what, Bobby? To be honest with you, Jaylen sometimes frustrate me, but there aren't many. I love this team. Like I was so happy. This off season was like summer vacation all throughout the entire summer because you had all your stress last year.
Yep.
And now it's just the Celtics are getting Gordon Hayward. Yeah, they are. He never played a game. Kyrie is going to come back and be healthy, and I don't. No matter what's going to happen with Kyrie's contract at the end of the season, I don't think there's any doubt after seeing all the controversy in Cleveland and how he performed in those playoffs during that time. Well, they weren't even speaking in the locker room. There's no doubt in my mind Kyrie is going to be all guns blazing and giving it all to the Celtics to win a championship.
I like that point. We're going to look back at this summer, next summer, and wonder how we were flipping out about Marcus Smart for 3 weeks. When
That's a really good point.
It was the most peaceful offseason you could ever imagine. No worries.
It was the first 4th of July I didn't fight with my whole family for being on Twitter.
Yeah, 2 years ago, a year ago, whatever it was now, on the July 4th when Hayward signed. Remember, he backed out.
Well, wait a minute, Bobby. 2 years ago was Hayward not Hayward. It was Horford and Durant.
Oh, Durant on 4th of July. And then last year, I'm out to eat with the family, and he's in, he's out. You wait all day long for the announcement. That was just ridiculous.
Then the announcement is premature. He didn't approve it yet. The agent's going, he didn't. I mean, that was crazy. And then on top of that, you're going into August, which is the doldrums, thinking, okay, so we got our team. It's Isaiah Thomas, and it's Gordon Hayward. And then all of a sudden, Danny trades Isaiah Thomas. That was like the last week of August or something, wasn't it? It was like
we haven't even hit the 1 year anniversary of that, and we were getting into this little lull we are right now. We're like, all right, let's look ahead at the season.
Let's take a break, right?
And then you heard the first murmuring of Kyrie Isaiah, and I didn't believe it for a second. Not only because it just sounded so ridiculous, but like nothing happens that late in the summer, especially a deal of that magnitude. Like, what was Garnett, July 31st?
Garnett was July. I mean, we all thought that was extremely late, and it was. But the Kyrie thing was out of left field, and I think we also definitely none of us knew exactly how injured Isaiah was.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that, had we known that, and then the rumors starting, maybe we would believe it a little bit more. And no one also knew how disgruntled Kyrie was. That was one area where you got to say, like, the players did really well not to leak things. I mean, as far as Isaiah was concerned, you knew he had an issue. You're going to go through the summer, see what happens, right? And Kyrie, I mean, he kept that they kept that very quiet. I mean, he started demanding the trade right after the finals.
Mm-hmm.
So
I was terrified that trade was going to get reversed once the medical started coming in, and that became a whole new story of its own. That would have been an absolute disaster looking back on it.
Me too, and I just loved the trade right from the first minute.
After that whole scare, all that ended up getting leaked out, too, was like another 2020 second-round pick. So, huge crisis avoided there. Let's talk about Cedric Maxwell real quick. He said Kevin Garnett. I get what he was saying. He was all over the news for saying this, but I do understand what he was saying in that Garnett at his height in 2008, when he was still Garnett, Minnesota Garnett, who can will a team to a championship, that was the best player in Celtics history.
I don't know if Max was trying to drop a bomb during the dog days of August to get. I don't know what he was thinking there. He's wrong. Far be it for me to.
We've had a discussion like this before. Garnett, where does Garnett rank on your all-time Celtics?
Geez, I mean, he might be number. I don't even know if he. He's just the impact. The impact he had in that one season was remarkable, but there are other players that had similar impacts. When Bird came in '79, Havlicek had just retired. The Celtics went from worst to first. They won a championship the following year, but they went from worst to first with no McHale, no Parrish. Bird's impact was ginormous, and I don't know. I mean, I obviously I'm not. I don't have the insights that Max does, or having seen. Played with Bird and some of these guys, and then
Is it a little bit of Bird resentment, you think?
I think there might be. I mean, I know that there's always been a little bit of resentment there, but I thought the same thing for McHale, who really took Max's spot on the starting lineup, which caused all that friction. And yet Max put McHale in his top 5 Wednesday night on NBC Boston. So I don't know, but I did tweet at all of them and said, "Where's Kevin McHale in all this?" Because to me, McHale in his prime was as good, if not better, than Garnett.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, he just wasn't as – because he didn't have to be. He had Larry Bird. But he wasn't as impactful as Garnett. Garnett was dramatically impactful because he changed the culture. He made it cool to like the Celtics again. Thank God. I'll forever be thankful to Garnett for that. And for that, his numbers should go up to the rafters. And I'm one of the guys who would say, hey, slow down with the numbers to the rafters, right? But Garnett needs to go there because he changed the culture. But I can never put him over Russell or Bird.
So, yeah, who is your number one?
Jeez. I mean, biasly, because I grew up with Larry Bird being he's the reason why we're talking today. If it wasn't for Larry Bird, I wouldn't have been a basketball fan. I got to put him at number one. Mm-hmm. And then you can't put Russell much down lower than number two. People forget that Bird was all defensive second team. I think you got to Google that. I want to say maybe 3 or 4 out of the first 6 seasons he was in the league. People also forget that Bird averaged a double-double throughout and nearly a triple-double. People always want to compare LeBron to Magic or Jordan. And, athletically, he's probably closer. He's more athletic than Jordan. He's probably closer to Jordan, though.
Three-time all-defense second team, 82 to 84. That's a deep one on him.
People forget that. Yeah. See, now, I bet you didn't know that.
No.
So Bird was if they had zone defense back then, he would have been all defensive first team every year because his instincts were so far ahead of everybody's. That said, he played zone defense throughout his entire career. I mean, every time Bird was on the floor, you could have called illegal defense because he was always roaming. But I just can't put Garnett over Bird. And I think it's complete disrespect to take Paul Pierce out of that top 5. Like, how do you not do that? And what about Havlicek? I mean, he transcended Russell to Cowens, and he's just 16 seasons, 10, 11 championships. I mean, how do you not put Havlicek there? It's just too difficult. And every summer we seem to have this debate. If it's not this debate, it's the should Garnett's number be retired debate. I mean, it's every single summer.
Garnett does have a hold on that one great season because that 08 for him, to me, was better than any season Pierce ever had. But if you look at that era in particular, Pierce was the one that made it stretch out as long as it did. We always say that was supposed to be like a 2 to 3 year thing. And he was playing sensational basketball all the way into that 2013 season. And he was playing great basketball with the Nets and Wizards after he left the Celtics.
The year that Garnett got injured, I mean, granted, I think they went on a 19-game win streak before he got injured.
They played the Bulls triple overtime game on NBA.
Yeah,
TV,
but I mean, they finished 62-20. That's Paul Pierce, man. When you're looking at the body of work and maybe some of Pierce's early on attitude problems, maybe that weighs in. But if it's not for Paul Pierce and KG, the Nets trade doesn't happen, right? Those guys, I mean, KG had a no-trade clause.
Yep.
So he had to waive that no-trade clause. I mean, and Pierce, had to sign off on the trade or else no one would have ever forgiven Danny. So I don't know. I mean, and then there's so many, Bobby. There's Sam Jones. I mean, what about Sam Jones? What about Kuzi?
Whose birthday is today.
90 years old today. I mean, but Kuzi, and you look at Kuzi as kind of like a Russell-type player. If there was no Kuzi, there'd be no Russell. Mm-hmm. Because Kuzi was the one who pushed the fast break. Bill Russell is the one that got the rebounds to run the fast break. But if it wasn't for Bob Cousy, no one's running that fast break, and the fast break's never invented. Mm-hmm. It's just such a difficult – I think taking the time that Garnett was healthy in Boston, it just negates his having him in the top 5. Like, Robert Parrish played 15, 16 years. I mean, there's so many guys. There's DJ. I wouldn't put DJ over Garnett, but McHale. There's just so many guys. There's so many guys.
Garnett deserves a lot of respect, though, and it is tough conversation because there's the allure, there's the statistics, there's the championship discussion, too, how important the value of that singular championship is. There's so many different factors that come into play here. And even something as small as waiving that no-trade clause plays into it, too,
that was huge.
I think. Yeah.
I mean, and if you remember, and I was one of the guys who didn't have the foresight to say, this is a great trade. I was one of those guys saying, KG, please don't waive the trade clause. Right? I just didn't want the big 3 year.
That is amazing, though, because what did we expect out of 13-14, really, looking back on it? Like, even if they did run it back, what were we expecting to happen?
If they didn't get traded?
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seemed like that. It seemed like almost like today's roster. It just seemed like that team could never be counted out.
Yeah.
As old as they were, they always seemed like Pierce was always pulling a trick out of his hat. Garnett was just Garnett. I mean, he was so. But what would have happened? They would have been a 500 team and gotten booted in the second round.
Yeah, even the first. They got kicked out in the first round.
That's pathetic, yeah. But that's because Rondo got injured.
Yeah, true. Before we go, Gordon Hayward's on video looking more active, doing the side-to-side movement. That was really nice seeing him in the Instagram video doing those side-to-side direction things because that's what he really needs to get back.
Yep, and the lateral.
We're pulling up on training camp now. it's slow and steady has been the approach to the comeback the whole time, which I think we all enjoy at this point. Remember, we thought he was going to be back in March, and he's just starting to do side-to-side movement in August. That was kind of ridiculous.
Really, really comical during the press conferences. It almost became a joke when the media would ask Stevens about the possibility of Hayward coming back. I remember, I think in the first round maybe against the Bucks, he was like, "Yep, he's starting tonight." Like, it was at that point, it was just like he was just messing with the media.
They really should have done so. They never would have done this. But imagine if they put him as questionable for a game. Oh my God! The headlines would have blown up Twitter. Twitter would have shut down.
For sure. I mean, I don't know what to expect from Hayward other than that they will probably monitor his minutes very closely. I think you can look at, and Celtics fans need to be prepared for, maybe a bit of a stumble out of the gate. I mean, they got the Sixers opening night, and then I think Toronto the next night. It's like right around there, isn't it?
Do you expect there to be some limitation, maybe have him taken off early back-to-back?
I think there will be for him and Kyrie and Al regardless. There's no question that Stevens, his job got a million times harder this year just because of the attitude, the egos, and the amount of touches everybody has to get. But he is so situated to rest Kyrie, to rest Gordon, even to rest Al, because the bench is never – I don't ever remember – and I'm going back to Bill Walton in the 80s. I don't ever remember the bench being this deep. Mm-hmm. Never. And no Hayward injury. The bench may not have been that – and no Kyrie injury. The bench may not have been that deep because then maybe Jaylen, Jason, and Terry don't grow the way they did. I don't know if he'll get into peak form this season, but if he does, it's going to be after the All-Star break. Mm-hmm. And I also, I really, whenever a team is reintegrating stars after injuries, they always seem to stumble a little bit. And there wasn't a massive amount of chemistry that they had developed in the preseason last year to even go. I mean, you can't even, that just never happened. I think it never happened.
Yeah.
What I kind of like, and it's opposite of how I've thought in the past. In the past, I've always liked them to go out of town for training camp. Yeah. I like that they're staying in Boston this year. It forces the players and the families to get to Boston earlier. You
like that you don't have to travel, too.
I love that I don't have to travel. You don't even know how psyched I am. I mean, I do have to travel. I mean, I got to get in my car and drive 5 miles to Brighton, or Boston Landing. But, it's not traveling all over the damn place. But I like I was super concerned last year. I mean, I asked Gordon, too, early on. I was concerned he'd go and kind of hunker down in Indiana or in San Diego, and we wouldn't see him at all. Seeing him as much as we did was great. But getting these guys, getting Kyrie back, focusing him, getting him off to being a movie star and getting him back to being an athlete, right? All that, and getting familiar with the city, I think is just as important. And having the team here in the city, I think this year is a good thing. I really do. I think having their families here is a good thing.
What you said about this last summer never happening and last training camp and preseason never happening is really a good point. We're really re-upping what happened last summer at this time and trying it all over again.
It's almost like a reboot, right?
Yeah.
You knew that you had Gordon coming back. You knew you had Irving coming back, but at the same time, they didn't get a whole lot of reps playing together. So it's going to be interesting to see how they all kind of mesh. And I can't wait, man. I love Gordon Hayward so much. I really do love Kyrie, too, as weird as he could be. Weird maybe isn't the right word. Maybe original as he could be, or eccentric. But I'm really, really looking forward to it. And I loved the seriousness in the locker room compared to the attitude in the locker room the year before.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward. Yeah, I mean, the intensity was just
what's going to be nice about this team? You have the stars who missed last season who are going to have motivation in that sense. They missed a year of their careers. They missed a season where they could have won a championship, maybe looking back on it. So they're going to have that going for them. And then for the players who are actually playing last year, who blew the 3-2 lead, came within a game of playing in the NBA Finals, and watched that pulled from under them with those brutal last 6 minutes. We haven't talked a lot about those 6 minutes that ended the season, but that has to be just sitting in the back of those guys' minds, whether it's Terry Rozier or any of them, how brutally they fell out of competition in that game. You look back at that Tatum dunk, they were within 1-2 points after that happened, and then the final score wasn't even close with what happened after that.
I don't think there's anybody that's dissecting and analyzing those last 6 minutes more than Stevens, which is kind of exciting. I mean, I would say probably that was one of the very few times you could say, wow, where's Brad? Because, I mean, Marcus Smart and Terry Rozier became your go-to guys. I mean, in the
Tatum
middle of
didn't get the ball. It was
Tatum didn't get touches.
Terrible to look back on.
And listen, if Al Horford is not going to touch, he doesn't have to shoot it. He doesn't even have to be the guy who facilitates the score. But if he doesn't touch the ball in key possessions, they're not going to fare as well, especially without Kyrie out there. And Al shrunk again. I mean, I'm not saying that it's Al's fault. I think to a certain extent it's Brad's fault for not calling Al's number. So I don't know if the game just got ahead of them, but I will tell you, as a media guy, not, I'm still a fan, but not necessarily like trying to position myself as not being a fan as an analyst after the games. I felt the pain of the Cavaliers celebrating out, in the TD Garden right outside the press conference room. I mean, you could hear them, and it was just painful because, like you said, it was so close.
Especially
it was so damn close.
Being the first home loss of the postseason too.
I know, right? It was so close. It really was. And, but this year's redemption, unfortunately and fortunately, Celtics aren't going to have to go through LeBron again. But they one thing that truly helped them last year with all the injuries and everything else was after they got over the shock of the Hayward injury, they went on that 16-game win streak. It put so much space between them and everybody else. Mm-hmm. When Toronto got hot, and they overcame them in the first seed, everybody else was so far down in 3, 4, and et cetera, that the Celtics had you knew they were getting home court advantage. And so, though I think they may stumble a little bit out the gates, super important that they pick it up quick and get a couple games, get a couple games distance between them and their competitors, even early on.
As Terry Rozier said, too, they were winning on and off the court with all the children that were conceived during that win streak as well, looking back on it, between Aaron Baines and Gordon Hayward around that time, too. So That was a fun season. We're almost on to next one, and we're going to hear it all through CLNS Media and Celtics Blog. As I said at the beginning of the show, look out for Liberty Ballers next week. Celtics Blog teaming up. We're going to be podcasting with 2 of the Liberty Ballers guys next week, so look forward to that. Subscribe to the Banners broadcast on iTunes, Stitcher. Is it on the app, Nick? I've been saying the app.
It is on the app. The Banners broadcast is on the app. We have now kind of put a hold on who goes on the app and who doesn't. But I want to say, too, before you wrap this up, another year of CLNS Celtics Blog partnership. I couldn't be more excited. Jeff and I were emailing back and forth trying to figure out how long this partnership is going, and I want to say we're going into our 7th season, which is incredible. So we're really looking forward to that as well. You guys, Celtics Blog, I mean, you guys are like our extended family, and it's just so great to work with real pros.
No doubt. So look forward to that this season, and we will see you next week. Good night, everyone.
Reunion Arena in Dallas, where the Mavs and Lakers are playing tonight, was built in 1980. Now, you couldn't ask for a better facility. It's easily accessible, has all the comforts of a theater, and there isn't a bad seat in the house. But for some reason, there are those who prefer the Boston Garden, mostly those who wear Celtic green.
What is so special about the Boston Garden other than the fact that it's 1,000 years old? Let's take a look. First of all, a garden it's not. It's a train station, really. One flight up and you're on the fabled parquet floor. Now, before you get all misty-eyed about the parquet, take a closer look.